Hey, it's Jeff Cannata with another newest, latest, best mini, this time talking about Terminator Genysis. Terminator Genysis. I have to admit, I had very low expectations coming into this Terminator film. The return of Arnold Schwarzenegger to the Terminator franchise, post-Governator, the return of, this is a franchise that has had its ups and downs, and mostly downs lately, I have to admit. And so I went in with much trepidation. I predicted this movie at the beginning of the summer was not going to do well. A lot of people thought the trailer wasn't good. I am a member of the hashtag Unsullied, so I had not seen the trailer. I had only heard this sort of buzz of negativity. So I went in with very low expectations. And I gotta say, I liked this movie. I had a great time with Terminator Genysis, much to my utter shock. This is pretty fun. Now, maybe a lot of the fun that I had was due to my low expectations, so I don't want to pump your expectations up too much because I'll tell you, there's a lot of dumb stuff that happens in it. But for the most part, this is pretty darn fun. I would equate it to the situation that we had with Jurassic World this year as well, where there is some not so great bits, but for the most part, it's a really smartly made sequel, a smartly made next step for a well-worn franchise that has had some missteps. Just like Jurassic World before it, I would say Terminator Genysis elevates this a franchise that was sort of waning and was sort of misused in a lot of ways, and injects it with some really smart, fun nods to fan service. There's a lot to be spoiled in this movie. I still haven't gone back and watched any of the trailers. I've heard the trailers can be really spoilery. I will not spoil anything for you, but I will say this. For a franchise, a science fiction franchise that is ostensibly about time travel, Terminator has rarely used time travel effectively. It's always been sort of just a backdrop for the action stuff. It's been a premise upon which an action film or a sort of horror action film can be set. This time, it really is about time travel, and I think that's to its credit. I think this is an area that has not been mined in the Terminator franchise to its full extent, and finally there is a movie that takes that side of the story, side of the mythos, and really mines it for a lot of great stuff. It flips things on its head. And it does time travel smart. A lot of time travel movies can be really dumb. I think Terminator Genysis takes the time travel idea and tackles it in a really, really smart way. In a way where I was not poking holes constantly in the concept. And we get Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of back the way we like to see him, and it doesn't deny his age, and it sort of folds that all into the storyline. I thought that was great. It requires knowledge of at least the first Terminator movie, and maybe the second as well. It sort of retcons out the other ones. But I don't think anybody that hasn't seen any Terminator movie before this would kind of even understand what's going on, because so much of the movie is about playing with your expectations of what you already know from these storylines, from the Connor family, from John and his mother Sarah Connor, and Kyle Reese from the first movie. All those characters still are at play here, and we're playing with timelines in a really smart way. I will say this. I don't think the action sequences in Terminator Genysis are particularly memorable or effective. They're not really expertly realized, and I find that to be a little disappointing for a series that is, even the third Terminator movie, whose name escapes me at the moment, but even that one, I think, or how many Terminator movies have we had so far? The most recent one was Christian Bale. I'm not thinking of that one. I'm thinking of the third one. I think it was Judgment Day. Anyway, no, Terminator 2 is Judgment Day. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The third one I thought was pretty bad, but at least it had really awesome action sequences. There's that sequence with the down the road where Arnie is hanging on to the semi and it's smashing into the storefronts as it goes down the road. I thought that was pretty cool. I just don't think there is a sequence in this movie that is action-wise as inventive, as cool, as over-the-top, certainly as anything in Terminator 2. I mean, Terminator 2 is still a high bar in that regard. And I think in a lot of ways, James Cameron, I know this is heresy to say, but James Cameron kind of ruined the Terminator franchise by introducing liquid metal. Not that he intended to. I thought it worked perfectly in Terminator 2. But just having that as part of the lore of Terminator ruined everything after it. Because now there's liquid metal, and you sort of have to account for liquid metal. And the things that I dislike most about Terminator Genysis are the sort of ways we have to one-up liquid metal and the ways we use liquid metal and sort of all of that technology stuff. I thought it could have been handled much smarter and much better. But that's not really... I mean, you sort of have to up the ante, I guess, and I just didn't think it was handled particularly well. So, better action sequences would have been appreciated, and some sort of retconning out some of the lore. Like, you don't even need to have liquid metal in this universe just because we know it so well from Terminator 2. It sort of lives in that world and needs to be there, I guess. But for the most part, everything else I had a great time with. I thought there wasn't any dreadful dialogue, maybe a few things here and there, but there's some really fun character moments, a lot of really fun T-800 stuff. I think the ending, I won't spoil anything, but the ending lets the movie off the hook in a little bit, which I kind of wish it didn't. I wish it had the balls to have a really sort of weighty ending. But I can heartily recommend Terminator Genysis. It's one of the better movies of the summer as far as I'm concerned, and I'm shocked that I'm saying that. A Terminator movie, I think this is the third best Terminator movie. That's, maybe a low bar for the other sequels, but it's nowhere near as good as Terminator 2, and Terminator the First is, a science fiction classic. But this, I think, does some fun things with how it plays with that lore, and finally we have a really sort of satisfying, fun, I don't have to check my brain at the door, time travel Terminator movie. So, I recommend going seeing it. I didn't think I would, but it's the shock of the summer for me. Terminator Genysis, thumbs up. If you want to see more videos on my YouTube channel, please subscribe. We'll be doing newest, latest, best throughout the summer as more movies come out. And I hope you're listening to the Slash Filmcast. I'll be talking about this movie with spoilers with those guys on the Slash Filmcast. That's at slashfilmcast.com. We also talked about Inside Out, which is, I think, a masterpiece in every way. I did not do an NLB mini about that, but we did talk about it at length on the Slash Filmcast. So check that out, slashfilmcast.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.